The signal in the dark. The message came through the noise of 100 dying stars. It was weak, frayed at the edges by time and distance, yet something in it gripped the technicians at the Deep Space Listening Array in orbit above Europa. The signal was a mix of language, light, and music. More than just a plea, it was art, encoded sorrow, desperation sung through frequencies older than human civilization. The translation AI choked on the syntax. It wasn't just words, it was poetry woven into pain. But 3 phrases stood out with haunting clarity. To any who hear, we beg for sanctuary. We are the Kherani. We are not warriors. The Vaxar are coming. Admiral Elias Rourke read the transcript in silence aboard the Earth Coalition flagship Resolute. The bridge crew around him was equally still, as if to speak aloud would dishonor the weight of what they had just witnessed. "They've sent this to a dozen systems," said Commander Navarro beside him. "Most have ignored it. A few forwarded it to the Galactic Concord, who also did nothing." Rourke's jaw tensed. How long? Signal's at least 3 weeks old. Could be too late. Rourke stood, his frame tall, weathered, a man who'd seen war and tried to leave it behind. His eyes weren't those of a soldier anymore. They were of a human being staring into a mirror of the past. "I want a direct link to the High Council," he said. The council chambers were quiet as the message was replayed. No one interrupted. Even the hawkish Minister of Resource Security had nothing to say when the Kherani's broken melody filled the room. Counselor Adeyemi finally broke the silence. "We do not know them. We owe them nothing." "Neither did we know the Belgians in 1914, said Rourke. "We crossed oceans for people we'd never met. Not for profit, not for glory, because it was right. This is a trap, perhaps. A fabricated broadcast. We are not the galaxy's police." "No," Rourke said. "We're its conscience." That word hit like a pulse through the chamber. "They didn't ask us for war," he continued. "They asked us for mercy. If we ignore this, we're no better than the ones doing the killing." Hours later, Earth's declaration echoed through every channel in human space. Effective immediately, the Earth Coalition enters a state of war with the Vaxar Dominion. Operation Firebreak is underway. Humanity stands with the Kherani. The galaxy had expected humans to do what everyone else did. Watch, whisper, move on. Instead, they watched a sleeping giant open its eyes. On the outer edge of the Vela Drift, the Kherani clung to a moon barely sustaining atmosphere. A world cracked by bombardment. Only a few thousand remained. Elder Sehen, his eyes deep-set and glassy, stared at the cold sky above their temple ruins. The last of the fires had burned out. Their sacred trees, once so vibrant, lay in ashen heaps. They had sent the signal like a prayer into the void. And then the stars moved. At first, they thought it was more death. But the shapes were different, sleek, symmetrical, lit not with blood red, but with a fierce, burning blue. Ships. Hundreds. One descended into view, a massive carrier-class vessel that made the ground quake. From its open bay stepped beings of 2 legs, armored in black and steel, holding banners not of conquest, but of unity. The humans. Sehen knelt, unable to stand. His voice cracked with the gravity of hope rediscovered. You came." Admiral Rourke removed his helmet. He looked tired, but his eyes held fire. He knelt before the Kherani elder, not in submission, but in solidarity. "We heard your plea," he said. "We came, but not just you. All of you, every nation, every colony, even Mars, and they haven't agreed on anything in 50 years. Sehen trembled. "What?" Rourke's gaze turned toward the distant stars, toward the Vaxar lines, toward vengeance. "Because someone had to, the hammer awakens." The Forge worlds roared back to life. From Mars to Titan, from the orbital shipyards above Proxima to the factories carved into the crust of Europa, humanity began to prepare, not for a campaign, but for total war. In the silence between stars, massive engines awoke. Ship skeletons, dormant for decades, were completed in days. Drone swarms stitched together armor, plating in orbit. Entire mining fleets were redirected to fuel the war effort. Civilian AIs were reprogrammed with military subroutines. Children watched, wide-eyed, as news feeds filled with footage of warships launching like thunder from the stratosphere. Humanity had not gone to war in generations, but it remembered how. Admiral Rourke stood in the Central Command sphere aboard the Resolute, the flagship of Earth's unified defense fleet. His image was mirrored on 100 bridge screens across the Armada. All captains, all fleets. Today, we do not fight for territory. We do not fight for power. We fight because somewhere out there, someone thought the galaxy would turn its head and walk away while innocence burned. He paused, letting the silence sharpen his words. They were wrong. On the outer edge of human space, the Vaxar Dominion watched the storm gathering. They'd seen humanity's progress, observed its art, its exploration, its tendency to fracture and squabble. In the minds of the Dominion's warlords, humans were clever, yes, but soft, weak, coddled by peace. So when the Vaxar High Fleet commander received reports of mobilization, he chuckled. They send artists to fight soldiers, he said, sipping from a chalice carved from the skull of a fallen enemy. Let them come. He didn't understand. He didn't know what kind of art humans made out of war. In orbit over the liberated Kherani moon, human and Kherani engineers worked together to erect a forward command base. Elder Sahin stood beside Rourke on the observation deck, watching as a Titan-class cargo hauler offloaded thousands of tons of supplies and weapons. "We never imagined such scale," Sahin whispered. "You do not simply fight. You reshape the stars around your will." "We have a long memory," Rourke replied. "We learned a long time ago that peace is something you build with open hands and protect with a closed fist." Sahin nodded, his voice brittle. "Do you ever fear what you become when the fist stays closed too long?" Rourke didn't answer immediately. He watched a formation of fighter craft streak into the upper atmosphere, trailing fire like gods of old myth. "Every day," he said quietly. On Mars, a crowd gathered as Project Longspear was unveiled, a new class of railgun platform capable of firing rods of tungsten at near-light speeds from orbit. On Earth, soldiers volunteered in numbers unseen since the early 22nd century. Old rivalries dissolved overnight. The Martian Union and the Pacific Alliance signed a historic treaty on the floor of a hangar under construction. This war wasn't just about defending the Kherani anymore. It was about proving something fundamental, that humanity still had a soul. On the eve of deployment, Rourke walked the decks of the Resolute, past crewmen loading weapon bays, engineers wiring fusion cores, and medics prepping trauma units. Every face was focused, determined. No one asked if it was worth it. They had heard the Kherani's song. It lived in them now. When Rourke returned to the bridge, he found a message waiting. A Vaxar transmission, broadcast on all known military frequencies. A mocking voice in harsh, guttural tones. "Humans, stay in your cradle. You know not the fire you step into." Rourke sent no reply. Instead, he walked to the main holodeble, tapped the target system, and spoke one word. Burn. Total war. The first human attack came not as a fleet, but as a whisper. Deep in Vaxar space, Black Ops recon teams slipped past sensor nets, disabling comm relays and sabotaging supply lines. Entire garrisons went silent overnight. Vaxar commanders accused each other of incompetence, unaware they were already at war. Then the fleets arrived. Thousands of human warships, organized into hammerhead formations, punched through border systems with surgical brutality. Each engagement was swift and precise. Orbital stations vaporized in seconds. Carrier wings deployed mechanized ground units that moved like storms of steel and plasma. Humanity had unleashed the machine of war, and it did not hesitate. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Rourke stood before the battle map, his jaw set. Next target, Valerian Prime. Civilian evacuation reports confirm it's been used as a breeding facility by the Vaxar for forced labor. "We take it clean and fast. No collateral." Captain Navarro leaned in. "Intel shows orbital defenses are heavier than expected." "I didn't ask if it was easy," Rourke said. "I said we take it." Valerian Prime burned. Human drop pods fell through the atmosphere like shooting stars, slamming into the surface with enough force to shatter rock. From their armored shells emerged enhanced infantry, each soldier neurologically synced with an AI partner, each move calculated in milliseconds. Captain Lena Singh of the 12th Drop Legion led the charge through the outer compound. She moved with purpose, her armor scorched, her rifle emptying pulse rounds with deadly rhythm. Kherani prisoners in Sector 3, her AI, Atlas, relayed. Conditions extreme. Hostiles converging. "I'll handle it," Singh growled, charging forward. By the time reinforcements arrived, Singh was already mortally wounded, but the Kherani were alive. She died on the landing platform, surrounded by them. One of the survivors, no older than 10, reached out and touched her face, whispering thanks in trembling tones. Her final words, "Don't let them fear us. Let them remember." Across the galaxy, humanity fought like it had never fought before. Each battle was more than a military operation. It was a statement. Before every orbital strike, human fleets broadcast the original Kherani distress call. In every language the Vaxar used, the same message played. "We are the Kherani. We asked for mercy. You gave us fire." They came. The effect was devastating. Vaxar morale collapsed. Entire battalions surrendered without firing a shot. They had faced countless species before, each one begging for terms. But the humans didn't beg. They didn't ask. They came as an avalanche and buried everything in their path. Vaxar High Command was in disarray. One warlord, General Keswick, stood before the imperial throne, shaking. "They fight like beasts," he hissed. "They lose sleep for strangers. They grieve for every one of their dead, and still they keep coming." The emperor rose slowly, then showed them a death worthy of grief. But humanity didn't break. Even as casualties mounted, Earth's systems remained united. Martian shipyards worked round the clock. Jovian colonies sent wave after wave of reinforcements. Earth's orbit was a constant stream of outbound vessels, some brand new, others retrofitted from museums and scrapyards. They even recommissioned the UN-001 Ark, the first Earth colony ship, now converted into a mobile weapons platform. The message was clear. Humanity was all in. Admiral Rourke stood once more before the full fleet. Holograms of fallen captains surrounded him. Singh's name had been added to the Wall of Honor. He looked out over the assembled commanders, his voice low but resolute. "We didn't ask for this war. We answered a cry for help." He turned, eyes burning. "But now we finish what we started. Final target, the Vaxar homeworld." Orders issued. Engines ignited. Humanity moved forward, not as conquerors but as executioners. And in their wake, the galaxy watched in silence. Because when the Kherani pleaded for help, humanity hadn't sent hope. It had sent the end. Ashes and echoes. The Vaxar homeworld loomed on the edge of the fleet's holographic map. A red giant sun bathed the scorched planet in burning light. Its surface bristled with orbital defenses, enough to hold back 10 fleets. Humanity brought 20. Admiral Elias Rourke stood in the command chamber of the Resolute, eyes locked on the battlefield ahead. The other fleet commanders, Martian, Terran, Titanborn, all watched him through the hololink, waiting. "Today we end them," he said quietly. Not a single voice objected. The assault began with coordinated silence. No war cries, no victory chants, just the sudden blackening of stars as Earth's warships eclipsed the sky. First came the orbital strikes, kinetic rods the size of submarines, plunging into defense grids with such force that tectonic plates shifted. Then the railgun platforms fired, shredding Vaxar towers with hypersonic precision. From above, the homeworld looked like it was bleeding light. Vaxar resistance was fierce. They unleashed fleets of bioengineered cruisers, massive creatures fused with tech, belching plasma and fear. They fought like the cornered beasts they were, without mercy, without logic, without hope. And still humanity advanced. In the trenches near the northern pole, Kherani auxiliaries fought alongside Earth troops for the first time. The former pacifists had learned the cost of silence. And now, with armor gifted by Earth's engineers, They returned to reclaim the soil their ancestors had painted with poetry. One of them, a young warrior named Relan, carved the Kherani glyph for truth into his shoulder plate before charging into battle. As plasma fire rained from the sky, a human sergeant shouted to him, "You sure you're ready for this?" Relan looked toward the horizon, where Vaxar fortresses cracked under orbital bombardment. "They taught us to fear war," he said, "but you taught us how to end one." In orbit, the final order came. "Deploy Project Helix," Rourke said. The weapon was a myth, whispered about in war colleges and dark corridors. A terraforming bomb designed to rewrite the very atomic structure of a planet, originally meant to revive dead worlds. Now its silence won forever. The device entered the atmosphere like a falling star. When it struck, the Vaxar capital disintegrated in a bloom of violet light. Mountains liquefied, oceans vaporized, cities became memory, and then came the silence. Total, complete, final. The war was over. The surrender came not from the Emperor, who had died in the blast, but from his son, broadcast across all frequencies, kneeling in ash, his voice hoarse. "We yield. We yield. Gods have come." And they were human faces. The Kherani didn't cheer when they heard the news. They wept. Elder Sehen stood on the soil of their reborn world, surrounded by survivors and seed ships returning home. Flowers once thought extinct bloomed in the ashes of their ruined temples. Human engineers had built new homes, clean water systems, defensive satellites. But not a single human stayed behind a rule. They came to defend. They came to punish. And when the war was done, they left. Admiral Rourke visited the rebuilt capital one last time before departing. He stood beside Sehen beneath a growing tree, a cutting from the last surviving Kherani forest, now replanted. "Will you ever forgive us for what we did?" Rourke asked. Sehen shook his head. "There is nothing to forgive. You gave us back our future. You burned away the past that would have killed us. What remains now is for us to grow." He looked up at the stars. "They will fear you now." "They should," Rourke said, "but they should also remember why." At the edge of the galaxy, on the ruins of the first Kherani colony attacked by the Vaxar, a memorial was built. No soldiers guarded it. No politics touched it. Just a black obelisk, simple and silent. Etched in every known language were the same words. They pleaded for help. Humanity answered. And beneath that, in smaller script, mercy for the innocent, fire for the wicked. The galaxy had learned a truth that day, one it would not forget. You could beg the stars and be met with silence. Or you could be heard by Earth. And when Earth answered, it answered with total war.